Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion in the off-season. Yep, we do this in the off-season, talking about different things that may shape the upcoming hurricane season. And then we take a look at lower 48 weather to see if there are any blockbuster winter storms on tap. And there might be over the next few days. Happy New Year to you. January 1st, 2018. Thanks for tuning in. Let's start off today's tour of the different tabs on the internet browser here. The SOI, the Southern Oscillation Index, is our first stop from the Australian Queensland Government Long Paddock site. What do we look at here? Well, this is the measure of the air pressure tendencies, a very simplified way of looking at it, in the tropical Pacific, the southwest tropical Pacific, between Darwin, Australia, and Tahiti. And basically what we're looking at here, when the pressure in the SOI pattern is strongly positive, we're in a La Nina pattern, generally speaking, and when it's negative, we are in an El Nino pattern, especially if it is strongly so and consistently so either way. So all that being said, we ended the month of December at negative 2.6. So that was quite a drop, a 12-point drop, maybe even close to 13 there from November. And the last 30 days averaging at -3, so it's definitely taken a hit. And that simply means that the pressure pattern across the tropical Pacific has changed a little bit and is realigning itself somewhat. What does it mean in the long term? Well, it's hard to say. Different models predict different things, and they're not very reliable, to be honest with you. We saw that last year where they were very robust on generating an El Nino. And as we look at the actual anomalies, this was updated on the 28th of December. Have not gotten a new map for 2018 yet, but I'm sure that'll be out by Thursday. But we are in this La Nina pattern. So here we go. This is the result of a strongly positive Southern Oscillation Index and other factors over the last several months. And how long this remains, and this is one of those pieces of the puzzle that we look at, how long this remains in place and how long this warmer than average water in the Atlantic, especially the tropical Atlantic, remains in place will be a very big key, probably the biggest key to the 2018 hurricane season, which is now about 5 months away. So, it's getting closer. In April, we will hear from Dr. Phil Klotzbach and what his group thinks from Colorado State University about the numbers that can occur for next season. Some agencies have already issued some forecasts. This early in the game, it's so, maybe it's not useful. I don't know. But, this is what we look at here. This is the surface temperature anomaly pattern, and I want you to notice, because this is going to factor in to the lower 48 discussion, look at all of this, especially near the East Coast here, the Northeast. Very, very warm water relative to average off the East Coast of the United States, and that's going to have a bearing on what happens later this week. In the subsurface, now this is very interesting. You take a cross-section of this, and this is just an example, like out through here, if you took a slice through the ocean, this is what it would look like, relatively speaking, is again, oversimplifying how it's actually done, but that's the general idea. This is a slice of the tropical Pacific, and so the eastern Pacific is over here, western Pacific is over here. I'm drawing with a mouse, so bear with me. And then you're looking at about 450 meters deep with the surface of the ocean, Pacific Ocean being at the top. So here is all of your cold anomaly, subsurface water, and at the surface as well. And then this curious large area and growing area of subsurface warmth has developed. With some of these anomalies, these are negative and these are positive anomalies, departures from normal. And, those deeper reds right there, getting, 4 degrees Celsius. You look at these gradients here. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. So, close to 4 to 5 degrees Celsius above average. But that is way down deep, more than 100 meters deep in the ocean, and it's not at the surface. So the SOI, that Southern Oscillation Index, if we get a strong negative developing and holding, then you have typically lower pressure in the eastern Pacific and higher pressure in the western Pacific, and that air tends to try to move this way, and that helps to push this warm pool this way. You see how it all comes together? So let's watch that SOI over the next few weeks and months, and then let's see how this warm pool here progresses, or does it just kind of go away and never really do anything? Those are the keys to the future. And again, this is a snapshot of what is happening. It is not a forecast, and I think this is better than trying to look at forecast plumes that go out 6 months, because they're going to be wrong. I mean, it's just, we're not there yet, honestly. How many times have we seen the models predicting an El Nino for the summer when it's only January, and it doesn't happen? So let's just keep looking at this. We'll be looking at this, and we will be looking at this over the next several weeks, all right? So right now, wow, what a change from the last several Decembers into January. Very cold here in the eastern United States. I don't want to leave out Texas. Deep trough carved out in the upper levels of the atmosphere with ridging over the western U.S. Fog is a problem out here. Warmer temperatures in the west, way below normal. Cold, in some case record-setting cold in the east. You have freeze warnings, hard freeze warnings, wind chill advisories, special weather statements. And what is this blue right up here off of the Cape? Let's scroll down and see what the legend says. Heavy freezing spray warning, or something like that. Let's just click on it. That makes me curious. What does that mean? Heavy freezing spray warning for areas from Gloucester all the way down through parts of Rhode Island, around the islands of Nantucket. Oh, yuck. Yikes. All right. Well, that shows you how cold it is. A freezing spray warning. Anyway, lower 48, most of it, the eastern two-thirds of the country, in the grips of this massive deep freeze, and with all of this Arctic air in place over this area, energy developing, in this case, in the Bahamas, in about 2 days, is going to make for a very, very potent storm. I think that's almost a guarantee. I'll show you this in a minute. The lows forecast to develop down here, and then it's a question of where does it go from there? Does it just head on out to sea? I say out to sea. That's not an exact track. Is it far enough away from the U.S. East Coast that it's just a glancing blow? Or will it form close enough and then stay close enough to bring absolutely incredible snow and wind to New England and a dose of interesting wintry precipitation farther south and west from there? That's the big question. Now, I'm going to tell you, I am not a winter storm synoptic weather forecasting expert by any means. I know how to interpret models generally, but that being said, even those who are winter storm forecasting experts, none of them, a big fat zero of them, know exactly what's going to happen with this storm track. I assure you. Some may say that they do, and hopefully they don't, like they won't say that, because this is very, very tricky, and I'm going to show you now. So this is from Levi Cowan's website. How many times have we used this in the hurricane season? TropicalTidbits.com. The model output is just so easy to interpret, and we all very much appreciate that. So the GFS here, this is the surface map, and we can see some precip, the pressure pattern, even some of the upper level heights are plotted on this. So it's a lot of different things going on at once, but it really helps to see the big picture. So starting out 24 hours from this morning, so this will be valid at 7 a.m. Tuesday morning, Eastern Time. All right, giant high pressure area, 1044 millibar high, located over northwestern Missouri, and that is a large sprawling area of cold air. So we got the cold air in place, and then you got this frontal boundary, and it's draped over the Bahamas and the southwest Atlantic across Florida and into the Gulf of Mexico. And then, another 24 hours out, by Wednesday morning, we start to develop this low pressure area and this little coastal trough right here in the vicinity of the Bahamas. Very innocuous looking, non-tropical, that has nothing to do with hurricanes, believe me. But you get this, what we call cyclogenesis, or the development of a low pressure area, and it's going to start to move at this point. And you can see the upper feature right here, the way that these height lines are carved out, what we call the thicknesses in the atmosphere. And this deep trough is definitely in place. Then you got your low down here, and it's going to come up the coast. But where it does so is what is so critically important in terms of who gets what and to what extent. Sounds like hurricane talk, doesn't it? Very similar, isn't it? All right, now we're going to jump to 60 hours out, and the low pressure area really starts to take shape in the 980s. If this was a hurricane or a tropical storm, and you get into the lower to mid 980 millibars, people would be all talking about it. With this case, it's over the warm Gulf Stream water. And remember, I showed you over here how warm it is just off the southeast coast there and the east coast in general. So now it's going to start to matter. So very warm water relative to average, the Gulf Stream in there, lots of dynamics, maybe some snow and other frozen precipitation for the Carolinas. Again, this is one model run from one global model, the GFS. It's not going to be verbatim. This is just showing you how complex this is, and you'll see as this evolves. Probably a very impressive lightning display over the Gulf Stream as this thing starts to really crank up. By 72 hours, according to the GFS, the snow shield, eastern North Carolina, parts of eastern Virginia, Delaware, all the way up through Jersey and the coastal areas, basically east of I-95. So the coastal Highway 17 corridor, maybe some light to moderate snow with this pattern. And you can see how this upper energy is digging in behind it. Very, very deep trough in the atmosphere with this low pressure, this strong cyclone here, and that's what it is, anchored over the western Atlantic. From this point, if it's that far out away from Hatteras as it is, pretty good rain and wind maker, just offshore. Cape Cod, probably some strong northeast winds, certainly strong north winds here along Chesapeake Bay and the Outer Banks, but not as bad as if this was about 100 miles or 50 miles even farther to the west. I don't know what it takes to make these things go farther west. It's not like hurricanes where you're looking at high pressure versus troughing, so to speak. It's similar, but it's not the same. So I don't know how to even suggest what to look for, except we look at trends. All right, so some of the people that you follow on Twitter that are knowledgeable about this stuff, those are the people that are going to help you decipher this over the next couple of days as this plays out. And you know who these people are. They're reliable. They don't post stuff just to gain, likes and followers or whatever. And there's just too many of them to list. You think about the people that live and work in this corridor, the Carolinas north, you know who to follow. Anyway, back to the topic. At 84 hours, it's way far up here in the Canadian Maritimes, the low, some lingering snow here, probably some pretty strong winds for Cape Cod, but this far east is not a memorable, unbelievable start to 2018 snowstorm pattern. It's just too far away. So, what's the bottom line? It's so hard to say, and I just don't understand how this works enough to either make a guess as to what to look for. I see that very, very warm water. I try to put, my thinking cap on and say, well, maybe the storm is going to come up the Gulf Stream and stay closer to the East Coast than try to get away from that warm water. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. We are talking at this point on the GFS, this is 84 hours out. That's still far enough out in time that, this could be closer to what they call that benchmark area, 40 north, 70 west. Maybe it won't be. What does the Euro show? Well, it's very, very similar, believe it or not. This is the 48-hour European. There's the low in the Bahamas. And at 72 hours, there's the low up here east of Hatteras. It's about in the same position as where the GFS has it. And you can really see the troughing, the upper level energy coming in here. And then at 96 hours, it's off the map. I mean, the low is probably sitting over here, not far from the area darn near Newfoundland. And that's hell and gone from Boston and Cape Cod, that's for sure. So, is it trending more east? Is it trending more west? I would say today's run looks like it's a little bit more east overall. It's hard to say. What is the takeaway from this? The takeaway is you all, anywhere along the east coast here, let's go back to this map, all along this area through here, you need to be watching this really closely because there is some potential, I don't know how much, I would put 30%, something like that, that this could be a blockbuster, unbelievable 2000, like remember January 2000 type event, the Boxing Day storm of 2010, remember that? Wow, that was a humdinger for the Northeast. Maybe, but it's not looking very likely today. Maybe it's going to look more likely tomorrow. Maybe it looks even less likely tomorrow. This is the challenge of the winter forecaster. You think hurricanes are tough. There are a lot of people up here and elsewhere that love snow. There's a lot of people that hate snow. But, trying to forecast this stuff is very, very tough because the modeling is only as good as we make it, and you just never know what's going to happen, and sometimes until it's underway. So a couple of points of interest. Very, very, very important. I've got children. A lot of you watching have children. Some of you are children that are watching. Ponds, streams, whatever, are going to freeze over in the south where you're not used to it, and it's going to be tempting to go walking out on it, playing on it. Please, please, please be very careful. I don't need to hear about people falling through the ice and freezing to death or whatever, drowning. Come on, this is a very unique event. You don't see this kind of cold this often. Areas down here are going to, well, not that far south, but you're going to have some frozen ponds, frozen lakes, whatever, frozen edges of the rivers. I mean, the Potomac's already frozen over in D.C., for goodness sakes. Just please be careful out there and make sure you check on people, just like in a heat wave, just like when a hurricane's coming. Check on people that may not be able to deal with this kind of cold for this long. People that are typically keeping to themselves, that are maybe compromised in their health or their age. We got to look out for each other. Let's start 2018 on a good note in being very, very weather aware and weather educated. All right, let's just try to change this whole culture of reacting to weather and being aware of it ahead of time, and then using weather either to our advantage in some cases. It could be fun, or certainly trying to not let it beat you when you knew about it ahead of time. Let's be smart. Weather intelligence is very important. All right? Don't forget, speaking of likes and subscribes, like the video, subscribe to the channel. You get updates in the future. Turn your notifications on. One last little thing that I left out. If this comes to pass, that it is a big deal up here where the Cape is, Cape Cod area, especially the Outer Cape, I would consider going up there with the hurricane equipment that I use. It kind of keeps me sort of in shape during the off season, if you get the analogy there. Since 2014, I have purposefully gone elsewhere. We do get snow and storms down here in the Carolinas from time to time, but I like going up to New England and the coast of New Jersey, etc., Long Island, since 2014 to intercept and study and test equipment in these powerful winter storms. So, if whatever this system ends up becoming is close enough to the coast and delivers hurricane force winds and blizzard conditions to the Outer Cape, I'm thinking about being there. And so stay tuned for that. If I do, it'll all be live and all that implies, right? You know about that from the hurricane season. So stay tuned for that. And that's another good reason to subscribe to the channel, because we stream live on YouTube whenever possible and all sorts of good things related to that. Okay? So I'll do another update tomorrow and again on Wednesday and then probably Thursday, because this is a big ticket weather event coming up. I'm fascinated with it. A lot of other people are. And I want to lend what I know. We'll check social media. Starting tomorrow, we'll run through Twitter and start kind of picking out some people that are talking about things that I think are helpful for understanding this event. And it's all part of that whole idea of being weather intelligent for 2018. That's my mantra. I think more people need to know more about the weather, and we can have less problems. And anyway, I'm done. Off my soapbox I go. Again, Happy New Year. Great to have everybody watching again. It's awesome. We're going to have an incredible year ahead. Always moving forward, always developing new technology. And you never know, we might get that underway this week with a big winter storm up in New England or some snow down here in the Carolinas. We'll just have to wait and see. Have a great rest of your first day of January and 2018 all at once. Again, I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks as always for tuning in. I'll have more for you tomorrow.